right, good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl, and I am the lead learner at the SCEA's Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. I hope you're having a wonderful night, and welcome to this webinar. We are going to be learning all about C-SPAN Classroom, all the resources that they have available for our classroom teachers. And I'm really excited to learn more about all of this. One of the people that is going to be joining us is Zach Lowe, and those of you who are in South Carolina may have heard of his name. Zach was the Sumter County Teacher of the Year and a Teacher of the Year finalist, and is just one of the outstanding teacher leaders. But he's now gone on to work for C-SPAN, and he is working with Pam McGorry, who is the Education Program Senior Specialist, and Craig McAndrew, who's the Director of Education Relations. Zach is the Education Resource Specialist, and we're just so excited to have them with us tonight to share and to explore what C-SPAN has to offer. So to the three of you, welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, Todd, thanks for having us. Just to reiterate, we've got Pam McGorry, Zach Lowe, and Craig McAndrew, and the three of us comprise the education team here at C-SPAN. So we're a small department, but I'd like to think that we're mighty in what we do and what we're putting out for the teachers and for the public to use as educational resources. We're going to go ahead and start with cspan.org and talk a little bit about the background of C-SPAN. So you should see on the screen here, this is our main website, cspan.org. And not only is it going to have information about all the programming that we have on our television networks, but it's also going to be a place that your students can use. You can certainly use it as well to access everything that we've aired since 1987. So just to back up a little bit, C-SPAN, the acronym, it stands for Cable Satellite Public Affairs Network. And that really talks about the way that we're distributed by cable and satellite, and then public affairs is the type of content that we cover. So we've been around since 1979, starting all the way back in March of 1979. Zach, do you want to go ahead and click on the Congress tab for me, please? Yeah. And one thing that a lot of people will associate with C-SPAN, really it's our bread and butter, is going to be our coverage of the House of Representatives. So you can see that the House actually is in a district session at the moment. So they just had a brief session today. They'll be back in next week. The Senate, if you go ahead and click on that one, Zach, you can see they're also in a pro forma session. So a lot of people will associate C-SPAN with our coverage of the House and the Senate. And the reason being is whenever those bodies are in session, we're going to cover them gavel to gavel. So you'll see that on C-SPAN 1, the House, and you'll see the Senate on C-SPAN 2. We actually have a third channel. And if you want to go back to the main page, if you can, Zach. And this was a little bit more indicative of the other types of content that we'll cover. So again, getting back to that public affairs. So really anything to do with the White House, anything to do with obviously the Congress, anything to do with the Supreme Court. We're covering all of that, and that third channel allows us to broadcast those programs live, whether it's a committee hearing or whether it's a White House press briefing, or really any number of things that might be going on any given day. That third channel allows us to cover those if the House and Senate are in session without having to preempt our coverage of those bodies. So beyond that, we cover a lot more than just what many people would associate with those three branches. We cover really anything to do with public policy, anything that's looking at the way federal tax dollars are being spent. We also cover American history. So every weekend for the past more than a decade now, every weekend we cover American history, and we have dedicated programming related to that. Some of these are really visual. So if you have younger learners who are perhaps a little bit more visual rather than listening to perhaps a talking head, some of these programs may be of interest. And we have everything from museum tours to lectures in history from professors at universities that are doing their, quote unquote, master class. And we're recording those and broadcasting those. Real America, so it's going to have historical footage and, archival programming. Some of them government-funded, produced programs, and lots of great content here. Again, as I said, it's a little bit more visual in nature. In addition to that, we also do Book TV, and Zach's clicking on that link now. And Book TV, again, not many people will probably associate this with C-SPAN unless you've been flicking through the channels or maybe seen some of these programs before. But with so much public policy and history being discussed in nonfiction books, that's what we cover every weekend. This has been around for more than 25 years at this point. and everything from historians and their books to biographies and autobiographies. We'll have interviews with those authors, and a lot of times those will be call-in programs as well, where the American public gets to ask questions of those authors. So that's just a quick overview of the type of content we cover. Our network is nonpartisan, so we're going to show all sides, and this is something that we try to impress upon teachers, that we're a trustworthy source that they can come to. It's all primary source. We don't really have reporters. We like to say at C-SPAN, our reporters are the cameras. We point the cameras at the people that are speaking. The American public, you as teachers, and certainly as students, get to listen to what those people are saying, and they get to hear it from all sides, left, right, in between, historians, journalists, all of the different points of view related to whatever that topic may be. And you get to listen to those people talk, and you get to say, I agree with that, I disagree with that, and make up your own minds. So one thing we do on C-SPAN Classroom, and it's really what Zach is leading the charge with on our C-SPAN Classroom website, is take all of that programming, which as a television network that's covering like the House of Representatives, if they're having a morning session, it might be 4 hours long. Obviously, we don't expect you as teachers and students to be playing the whole 4 hours. So what Zach and Pam are doing is actually going through and creating clips of that programming, and trimming it down to clips that are typically between 2 to 5 minutes in length, a little bit more digestible in length for your students to listen to and hold their attention. And that's what we're doing here on the C-SPAN Classroom website. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Zach. He's going to talk about some of the specific areas of the website, talk about some of the specific resources. But Zach's come on board, and as Todd was saying, he's been a tremendous addition for Pam and I, and has really led the charge on our content development this year.
Well, thank you, Craig, and thank you all for tuning in tonight as we learn about now C-SPAN Classroom, delving into, as it says right there at the top of the screen, free video-based materials for social studies teachers for primarily middle school and high school, but there is applicability across grade levels, across content areas from geography to economics to law to civics to, of course, government and history as well. But when you come into cspan.org/classroom, you'll find at the top of the screen, looks very similar to the C-SPAN website. We have a couple different images of videos, but all of these have already been tailored to teachers, to students, as what Craig was just saying. These are what you might define as our TTVs, or timely teachable videos, or just in layman's terms, current events videos. So throughout the school year, we try and get up 1, maybe 2 current events videos per day, just happenings in Washington, public policy interests, and beyond. So you can see just in the last few days, we had a speaker on our morning program, Washington Journal, about the U.S. economy and recession, talking about, well, when exactly does a recession occur? We also had another speaker about the future of healthcare in the United States, potential modifications to the Affordable Care Act. We also had a speaker talking about the airline industry and a lot of the recent flight cancellations. So really what you might find at the top of our C-SPAN Classroom website really just runs the gamut. And as one example, you may have heard late last week, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson took the oaths of office to become the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. That's something that we also aired live. So we'll play just a quick snippet of this ceremony, but you can see whenever you access one of our resources, particularly our video clips, you'll have the title at the top, you'll have your video clips. But then to assist teachers, we also type descriptions of the resources. So if a teacher wants to give this out directly to their students through Google Classroom or Schoology or whatnot, you have the description there. We also pull vocabulary terms out ahead of time, so students might be able to engage with those before they even watch the clip. We find related articles in the news or different public policy organizations that talk about what's in the clip. We also link to a couple other additional resources as well. We'll play just a quick snippet of this video clip.
Welcome to the Supreme Court. We're here today to administer the oaths of office to Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to become Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. But before we do so, I would like to recognize Dr. Patrick Jackson, who is here, her husband, and her daughters Talia and Layla. The administration of the oath is required both by the Constitution and by the Judiciary Act, and so we'll be delivering two oaths. I'll deliver the constitutional oath, and Justice Breyer will administer the statutory oath. There will be a formal investiture in the fall, but the oaths will allow Judge Jackson to undertake her duties, and she's been anxious to get to them without any further delay. Are you prepared to take the oath?
I am.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ketanji Brown Jackson, do solemnly swear
I, Ketanji Brown Jackson, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
So of course, in that particular clip, you can see Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson taking the first portion of her constitutional oath through Chief Justice John Roberts. So this is actually a pretty rare glimpse into the Supreme Court because to date, they don't allow cameras in the actual courtroom, but they do air some of these different public policy interests. So whether oaths, investitures, so on and so forth. But shows that there's just a very short clip, something maybe that you might want to engage your students with to keep your classroom up to date on the news, so to speak, or up to date on current events. Within each of these video clips, we also include a primary source handout that is already prepared for you and for your students, where students can engage with this activity, with this worksheet, so to speak, and analyze whichever current event video you'd like to play in your classroom, and then discuss with their peers what they found. So returning back here to C-SPAN Classroom, at the tippity top of the website, you'll see a couple different buttons at the top. I'm going to focus here on the center one that says Featured Resources, aggregated by curriculum and theme. Within the Featured Resources page, we have a bunch of different subject areas already pulled out for you. And I'll return to this in just a second. If you're here on the C-SPAN Classroom page, you can see we have a search feature at the top. You can see that we have topics here at the top. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find what you're searching for. Just to show you just how many resources we have between video clips, bell ringers, and lesson plans. We have just about 6,200 different resources that you can use in your classroom. You can search by topic area. Of course, if you're searching for U.S. history resources, still 2,071 resources might still be a little bit unwieldy. So you can use this search tool. You can type in whichever search elements you want to search. For instance, I know we're talking to a group of teachers in South Carolina. So you can search South Carolina and see anytime that South Carolina has been mentioned in titles or descriptions or in the video clips themselves. But of course, again, back to this Featured Resources page that you can access here at the top, you can also search more specifically by content area, by year, so on and so forth. So if we come over here to U.S. history, you can see that we've already sorted U.S. history resources into these time period brackets. And within each of these time periods, we then have our different resources here in list form. So it's another way that you can mine just the many, many thousands of resources that we have available. One collection that's special to me, because I helped develop it, which is always a fun story to tell, is our state history collection. So over here on the left side under U.S. history, you can also access state history resources. We have a multitude of different resources for every state, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. I'm going to come down here to South Carolina, so you can just take a quick peek at what we have available for the Palmetto State. You can see we have everything dating back to the 13 original colonies, Supreme Court case, Battle of Fort Sumter, jazz in Charleston, South Carolina. But the resource that I chose to focus on today, just to show you another clip of something else that we offer, is a resource about the Confederate battle flag that was removed from the South Carolina State House just a few years ago. So in this particular resource, this is one of our bell ringers. It may look similar to the video clip that we just watched, but bell ringers do offer some extra support for you and your students. So you see the description is still there, vocabulary is still there. Excuse me. But with bell ringers, you have pre-made questions and assignments already built into the resource. So in this particular bell ringer, there are 3 video clips. First video clip is actually archival footage of them removing the Confederate flag from the State House grounds. Of course, clip 2 that we're about to watch a snippet of is President Obama speaking at the funeral of Reverend Clementa Pinckney after the Mother Emanuel tragedy. And then clip number 3 is actually footage from the South Carolina State House representative arguing why the Confederate flag should be housed in a museum, which many of you may know is the Confederate Relic Room in Columbia. But each of these resources, you can see, pulls direct quotes sometimes from the video clips. It might include an extension for some of these resources, but it focuses on the general gist of each video. But these are already pre-made for you, and very easily you can embed these into Google Classroom or whichever other feature that you use. But really quick, we'll just watch a snippet of this video clip of President Obama. So you can see another kind of form of current events, public policy that we cover.
For too long, we were blind to the pain that the Confederate flag stirred in too many of our citizens. It's true, a flag did not cause these murders. But as people from all walks of life, Republicans and Democrats, now acknowledge, including Governor Haley, whose recent eloquence on the subject is worthy of praise. As we all have to acknowledge, the flag has always represented more than just ancestral pride.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For many, black and white, that flag was a reminder of systemic oppression and racial subjugation. We see that.
So of course, in this particular clip, you can see it's unedited. There's no editorialization. It is exactly what President Obama said. And of course, everything that we do with C-SPAN, our educational resources, also follow that same tune, so to speak, where it's fair and balanced, or at least unedited, that we show all sides of the issue. So you have clip number 2, President Obama speaking, and then you also have, as I mentioned, Representative Rick Quinn talking about the familial ties that the Confederate flag has with Confederacy. So each resource has basically both ends of multiple perspectives, which is something that a lot of teachers are looking for as well.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
My 2 cents?
Mhm.
Because what we've learned over the course of the last 2 years with the pandemic is sharing not just what we have with teachers, but strategies for how to use it. As something our team has been focusing on. But as Zach indicated, there are several video clips associated with this, but many of our bell ringers just have one video clip. And so one way teachers use this is to launch their class. You know, when students are coming in, and we remember doing that when we were teaching, just having something up that's ready to go. You can use it that way. Some teachers have assigned it for class homework assignment so that students can preview it the night before and come in ready to discuss it. Some have used it as a mid check-in point to break up that conversation, and some have used it as an exit assessment. As a matter of fact, we have one of our fellows who's working with us this summer who said, even in high school, one of these, depending on the content, can be your lesson for the class. So there's so many different ways to use them.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Pam was saying, some teachers might use them at the start. I always like to use them at the end of my class after we got done with a particular unit, just to kind of plant that seed for the next unit they were about to engage with. So thank you. So going back to the featured resources page, as I mentioned, we have a ton of different content areas over here on the left-hand side, stretching from US history to world history, economics, human geography. But next, we're going to turn to US government and the judicial branch. Within the judicial branch, we have process and structure, judicial interpretation, history of the Supreme Court. But for now, we're going to take a look here, our Supreme Court cases list. We have a former series, our landmark Supreme Court cases. And you can see just how many cases we've covered. And each of these different lessons, which are a little bit longer than our bell ringers, or in this case, bell ringers that we just looked at, includes kind of the preempting of the case, the decisions in the case, the effects, the outcome, and the legacy of the case. And a recent case that has been mentioned recently was Roe v. Wade. So this is an example of one of our landmark Supreme Court case lessons. Aside from our video clips that we've looked at, and aside from our bell ringers that we've looked at, some of our longest resources, some of our most robust resources, if you will, are our lesson plans. And as Pam said, not just what to teach, but also how to teach it. Our lesson plans often include graphic organizers. Sometimes they include choice boards. Sometimes they include vocabulary flashcards. And of course, they include many, many more clips than you might find in a bell ringer or in a singular video clip. You can also see here in the lesson plan, each of the procedures is already stated for you. The questions are already built for you. The handouts are already made for you. So in this particular resource, our Roe v. Wade Supreme Court case, we have our handout. As students view the videos, they can note key points, and they can also oftentimes reflect on these resources as well. Let's see, scroll back up here. And we'll watch just a quick snippet of one of these clips from the Roe v. Wade Landmark Cases series. So you can see another kind of style of different programs and series that C-SPAN offers.
First, we're going to start with a CBS Evening News report on the night the decision was announced. Let's watch.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
To raise the dignity of woman and give her freedom of choice in this area is an extraordinary event.
I think that the judgment of the court will do a great deal to tear down the respect previously accorded human life in our culture.
So that's just a very small snippet of, again, some of the what we showed when Greg was discussing the C-SPAN Classroom main site, our Real America series, some of this archival footage. But then we also have the relatively present day or current discussion. And this particular lesson stretches, as I mentioned earlier, from the historical context, the background and the legal process, and then also as specific as the questions that were directly in front of the court, their conferencing sessions, the oral arguments. We have audio of oral arguments with the Supreme Court now, and of course the decision itself. So our lesson plans are, as I said, a lot more lengthy than maybe our bell ringers. Some teachers might be able to accomplish this lesson plan in just a few days. Other classrooms, it might be a week-long lesson. Other teachers might want to extend out this lesson throughout if they're studying the role of the Supreme Court. They might want to take one clip each week as they explore the Supreme Court. But all these resources are already built for you. And as Pam mentioned, not just the clips, not just the resources, but also how to engage with it as well is spelled out for teachers as well.
And some of them are designed with options, and with that in mind, you can jigsaw some of them, right? We've been focusing on choice boards, again, over the last couple of years, recognizing we need flexibility with students and teachers. So That offers you different methods to reach your students. Take a look here. And so students can move along at their own pace, or if they're working with a partner or in a team, they can view certain clips together and share out, or providing them with options or choices to pick the videos that they might want to view in a particular collection, or assigning them think, pair, share. There's so many different ways to use these, but this is another area that we're developing.
Yeah. And I have just two more things to show everybody before I turn it over to Pam for her section. I'm going to return here to our featured resources page one more time and just walk you through the main page. Whenever you do access our featured resources page, you can see each of our different topic areas are also listed down here. So another way, ease of access. But there are two other things that you can access directly from this site that are not available elsewhere on our C-SPAN classroom collection. The first is our American Presidents website, which is brand new, completely revamped, and it shows and showcases each of our nation's presidents. So if you click on a president, it'll include an at-a-glance description. It'll also show you any time that president was referenced in our video archives, a life portrait, and also link directly to our C-SPAN presidential survey, where we have historians come together each election cycle and discuss where presidents rank, so to speak, on the historical record. But also within each of these, you have life facts, and then there's also a bell ringer attached to every single president that brings you right back here, and it's a biographical vignette for each president as well, alongside, of course, the questions that we already have built. So a very robust collection for U.S. history teachers or U.S. government teachers. And then the other thing that's available here on our featured resources page, which is brand new this year, is our C-SPAN in the Classroom podcasts. There are podcast episodes directed straight toward teachers that include a variety of different topics, and of course, each use footage from the C-SPAN video archive. So season 1 has already concluded. We're getting ready for season 2 again up here in the fall. But you can take a look at some of our most recent topics. We covered an episode of LGBTQ plus Pride Month last month. And then we also had an episode about the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln Memorial, where we had a park ranger here from the National Mall come into our studios and share her insight into the Lincoln Memorial and its legacy, so to speak, I guess, throughout history. So legacy and just impact and what it means to so many different people. So make sure you check out the podcast. It is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts, as well as the free C-SPAN Now video app, which is available on Androids and iPhones and every other device. So, Pam?
Okay.
There you go.
I think I'll leave that.
Just in case.
Get out of here. Okay, so if you're following along with us and you are on the C-SPAN Classroom website, we're going to take a look now at our Constitution clips. This is really popular with teachers in grades 6 through 8 or 9 through 12, particularly in September when it's Constitution Day. So please keep that in mind to check it out so that you can bookmark it and use it in the fall. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going to go back here and click on that. Okay, so here you'll see the complete text of the Constitution from the preamble through all of the articles and continuing on down through all of the amendments. And you'll notice this blue highlighted text. So that text has C-SPAN video clips linked to that particular provision of the Constitution. And the goal here is for students to see how relevant this document is and how it's used every single day. And so what what we do, and what Zach and Craig mentioned earlier, is sift through all of that programming that we have and find examples of it in action or explanations of it in action, so students can see how it is a relevant document. So whether you know the particular provision you're looking for and you want to search through it here, or at a glance you want to take a peek at some of the videos here, linked on the side, you can scroll along here to check that out. So if you're looking for, during COVID, there was big discussions on limitations, right? The freedom to gather and speech, and what was left up to the states. So whether it's First Amendment rights, students can see for themselves how that was affecting them. States' rights, how that was affecting them. Second Amendment, gun legislation, how that's affecting them, or even the vice president, when he or she has to make a tie, we have examples of that as well. But we're going to take a look at an example here of the Second Amendment, and I believe you already have this up for me, so thank you. So the number of clips varies with each. We have at least one or two, but there are several, and these are updated frequently when we find these examples. And we're going to take a look at two examples here, and again, to show you a balance. And they're really short, because we aim to keep them short. So if you recall, it was just about 5 years ago here when Representative Steve Scalise, who is a Republican from Louisiana, was injured during a shooting while they were preparing, the Republican team was preparing for the congressional baseball game. So we'll just take a listen here.
A limit. Do you believe that is the right to bear arms unlimited, or is there a limit?
Look, the Second Amendment really predates the Bill of Rights. Our founding fathers believed strongly in gun rights for citizens. Frankly, they thought it was an assumed right. They didn't put it in the Constitution because they didn't think it would ever be in jeopardy. But ultimately, you saw attempts later on to take away gun rights. So they said it's so important, we're going to make it one of the 10 Bill of Rights constitutional changes. And so it is a long history in our country to make sure that you protect the rights of citizens to bear arms.
But is it unlimited?
It is. I mean, you've seen
really
limits.
Believe it's unlimited,
you've seen limits put in place, Chuck. You've seen limits that are already in place. And again, you've seen laws that are on the books. And those laws are there for a reason. Well, you're right in the sense that there are already limits on the gun ownership. But frankly, let's go out and enforce those laws. Don't try to put new laws in place that don't fix these problems. They only make it harder for law-abiding citizens to own a gun.
Yeah, I think it's just a great example for students to actually see their representative in action, and his perspective of being the victim, particularly. So that's one perspective, and then maybe you want to play. We can play the first clip here.
Next tab.
Oh, you have it. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, we'll play with this one, and I love this too because it shows the different programs we have, not just the traditional House and Senate floor debates and votes. So we'll take a listen here to Adam Winkler, who's a constitutional law professor at UCLA, and his perspective on the Second Amendment and the meaning of the phrase well-regulated militia.
The Second Amendment clearly envisions a well-regulated militia. Whether the founding fathers thought that it was important to have civilian gun ownership as a deterrent for tyranny, the Second Amendment itself clearly envisioned government regulation of the militia. The Supreme Court said that when the framers referred to the militia in the Second Amendment, they were referring to common citizens, the body of citizens capable of coming out and ready to grab their guns at home and be ready to fight in an instant. But that militia would be well regulated by the government. And indeed,
and then we can take a look at just some of the other ones quickly, just to scroll through them if you want an example of this example of the president of the Brennan Center for the Justice at NYU School of Law, Michael Wagner, talking about the original intent of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. We have Senator Tim Kaine, so you have the Democratic perspective as another side of this debate, and it continues on. So here you can see the variety of programs from which we choose, and just offering students options to see the different perspectives, so that the whole goal is for them to decide for themselves what they think on an issue to make their own informed decision. And if you look down here, as Zach noticed, in other resources, we have additional related content that you might want to use. But here we have Google Doc. So it's ready to go, very popular, especially if you have a substitute. You want to take a look at this. Here. Here, students, it's they can work on it with a partner, they can work on it by themselves, homework assignment, whatever the case may be. Here, they can just follow the instructions and show what they know, interpreting and analyzing. We don't do it for you, but they can do it based on what they see in the video. So that is our Constitution clips.
And I always find it amazing, like how many things we can add Constitution clips week by week by week. So for instance, there was one just a few weeks ago, I think we discussed the First Lady, Jill Biden, wanted to maintain her teaching position at Northern Virginia Community College, but was not going to be allowed to because that was a violation of emoluments clause. So she had to forego her salary from her teaching position to be able to continue that teaching role. So
yeah.
You never know what you'll find week to week.
No, we're learning all the time. We really do engage in these discussions ourselves. So we really encourage you to do it. Even something We the People is a favorite one that we like to talk about too, and what it meant then and what it means now and how it has evolved over time. But we encourage you to keep this in mind, bookmark it, and come back and check it out. And so from there, we'll go back to the original C-SPAN Classroom website, and we're going to hop over to our On This Day in History collection. So if you click on that, you can follow along with us, and it will default to the current month. But be sure to check out the other months, because you might be teaching a subject or topic area in which something happened in another month. So be sure to check out other months as well. And these really focus on key events throughout history, not small day-to-day ones. So we can take a look at one. We're going to take a look at the Scopes trial, since that is coming up, to take a look at how these are designed. So they vary. Again, you'll have several clips. The first one is usually a background clip to check it, just to provide background for students and to set up the topic. Clips 2, 3, and 4 can just build on it, add more information, add perspectives. We're really fortunate when we can dive into our American history TV programming and get that primary source interview from a program or from someone who was on location. So we might have some of those. And the last clip is usually a legacy clip. But here you'll see it will have a description just to provide teachers or students, if you're going to give it to them directly, with a setup of what they're going to be exploring on this particular day. And if you scroll down here, again, I want to just point this out to you. Again, we have a ready to go Google Doc, so you can save a copy of it and distribute it to your students and have them view it and respond to the questions. So, oops. Here we're going to take a look at the first clip before we get into what some of the other ones are, so you can take a look. I love this. I love when we get into our archive programming.
The Scopes trial is important as well for the themes that it raised. Questions of what the educational system was for. It raised the big question of what do you do with religion in the public schools? How do you pass morality down to the next generation? And then, of course, the question of how do you interpret the Bible? What role does the Bible have in American public life? And the Scopes trial is the best example of when we can talk about that. Well, the Scopes trial took place in Dayton, Tennessee, which is a small town, still pretty hard to reach in Tennessee. But what Dayton had that a lot of other schools didn't have at this time, or a lot of other towns didn't have at this time, was a small group of boosters who thought once the state legislature had passed the Butler Law, which is debate over the provisions, but basically it was illegal for any teacher in the public schools or publicly funded schools in Tennessee to teach any theory that man is descended from animals and that contradicts the divine story of creation as noted in the Bible. Once the legislature passed the Butler Law and the governor signed it with the expressing understanding that nobody would be fool enough to actually enforce a law like this, whose intent was really just to prove that the legislature believed in the Bible. The National Civil Liberties Union at the time thought that the Butler Law was a terrible law. It conflicted with freedom of speech in the First Amendment and also conflicted with the rights of teachers. And that was one of the reasons why the Civil Liberties Union had been created, to defend the rights of teachers. And so they needed a test case because they thought, well, the only way to get rid of this is to take the law up to the Supreme Court. Now, some people might have argued and did argue, and we might argue, the best place to get rid of a law like that is actually to get Tennessee to repeal the law. But the Civil Liberties Union hung its hat on the Supreme Court. It never actually got there. But one of these problems with trying to get a case before the Supreme Court is you actually need a case. And so you run a test case and you have to find somebody willing to break a law, and then you pursue it, you know, from local courts up to state Supreme Courts up to appeals courts. And they thought they should get this case taken all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the only place where they found a willing defendant was this sleepy little village of Dayton, Tennessee.
So there's a lot of information just in that, and we found that very, very interesting. And not sure if this is a subject or topic you'll use in your classroom, but he did mention in the clip that this is one of the most famous trials of the 20th century, and it put this small town on the map. But you can take a look here at some of the other clips. He goes on to talk about some of the people, the key people who were part of this case, the publicity that it drew, again, drawing from our archive video, the key arguments that were presented in the case, and the significance or the legacy, like we talked about, a wrap-up clip. So that's an example of what these look like. So if you have any suggestions as you go through, because I know you're going to go back and you're going to go explore.
The events that are missing. Yeah.
Exactly. Please send them our way. We're going to drop our email address in the end, and it's certainly on our website, educate@ceapinspan.org. But send them our way because it helps us create content that's useful for you. So check out, some of the other ones that are coming up this month, and please feel free to share any ideas with us.
If you ever miss any, they're always featured on our social media pages as well, at C-SPAN Classroom on Twitter and Facebook too.
Okay, so returning back to our website, we're going to go back here to the middle, our classroom deliberations. So you can click on that here. I think we have the tab open here already. Now, this was designed to really engage students, and you can see the description here, on a discussion and debate about the current events issues. We really try to keep these evergreen so somebody can go back to and update them. But these are more detailed, in-depth lessons, and I'm sure, Zach, you're going to be able to dive in and help me explain some of this, because Zach really designs these. He does a great job of doing that. But I'll get us started on what these look like. So here you can see the most recent are up here, and they're inquiry based, and NCSS endorsed this. For that reason, it falls within the C3 framework. So we are proud to have that endorsement, and they're updated monthly, every other month or so.
One every month,
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a look at how they're designed through this one. Who is responsible for today's opioid epidemic? So here is the introduction. So you can read through it together with your students, or have students read it themselves, just to provide some background information on it. Here you'll have the objectives and the outcomes, so you know the expectations, and the students will know the expectations as they move through this lesson. We will have in-depth handouts, which we'll take a look at in a minute or two. We have some background videos to set up the topic again. background articles, so students can do a little additional reading if they want. And then we'll have the leading 2 or 3 positions, not necessarily pro or con. Sometimes it's just how to address the issue. Always keeping in mind like C-SPAN's mission of being nonpartisan and providing multiple perspectives on an issue so that you can, viewers, students can all determine for themselves what they think on it. So that's how they are designed. So what we'll do is take a look at one clip. Now, here you'll see Patrick Keefe. He's discussing the emergence of OxyContin and the initial reactions from the Sackler firm. I remember as you were going through that, you were talking about how intrigued you were by that story. So let's take a listen.
Purdue Pharma, this company owned by the Sackler family, releases OxyContin in 1996. And the company and the family have long claimed that they didn't know that there were any real problems until 4 years later, when they only knew when they read about it in the press that people were abusing OxyContin, growing addicted to it, overdosing, dying. And one thing I was able to pretty conclusively demonstrate in the book is that that's not true. Actually, they knew long before 2000. And actually not too long after the drug had been released, that this drug that they had been promoting as impossible to abuse, as not addictive, actually was causing real problems for a lot of people. And the response from the family and the company is really interesting, because I do think that another family, another company might have had a moment of alarm and said, wait a second, we've got to take a hard look at what we're doing here, and not necessarily pull the drug from the shelves, but like look at their marketing, look at the claims that they were making about the drug, look at how aggressive they were being in promoting it, and ask, are we contributing to this problem? And they didn't do that. What they did instead was they basically said, there's 2 kinds of people. There's legitimate pain patients who are taking this pain medication that we sell, and they never have a problem. They never get addicted. They take it as directed. They're responsible. They're good citizens, and they should have access to the drug. And then there's drug abusers. And these are people who, if they weren't using OxyContin, they'd be using heroin or cocaine or some other prescription pills. They're bad people. Richard Sackler, in particular, this is a 2nd generation Sackler who was very instrumental in the development and promotion of OxyContin. He said they're the scum of the earth, is what he said. They're not victims, they're victimizers. And that has long been the position of the family and the company, that it's not the pills that are a problem, it's the people who are abusing them. And
so that's a little bit from that, and you'll see, because this is a video clip, it's consistent with the other ones that we have. You have your description, the keywords that are found in that particular video, so students have that ready to go. There's just so much to unpack in these, and it's just great information and offers flexibility. As Zach mentioned with other lessons, some teachers might take a week to do this. Others pick and choose. Maybe they just want students to watch one video from each perspective. Here you have author San Quinones offering another perspective on if the government policy is responsible for the epidemic. And you can take a look as you scroll down here. We also have a DEA perspective. What is it? Drug traffickers that are part of the problem. So there's lots of ways to approach this issue that students can learn about if you just present them with these.
And what's unique about our deliberations is, while the introduction clips have the questions, much like we saw in the lesson plans and the bell ringers, the position clips don't. It is wholly what are the students able to ascertain from those clips. So there is no leading question, so to speak. There is absolutely no potential for bias short of just each of the different sides. So it really allows the students to take a step back, to view these different perspectives and to come to their own conclusions, which they're then able to show via a letter to an editor, via an essay, via contacting their congressperson. So these are by far the most detailed lessons we have. They include the introductions, they include their own bell ringers or hooks, they include all the different extension activities that you could possibly do as well. So, but again, the general gist is when students go through these deliberations, they are prepared to deliberate the topic. They are now experts in the topic and can choose a side and stand for that side.
Yeah, and I love the variety of options to get warmed up and to offer here. Writing and taking a stand, previewing vocabulary if they need to. So this is really fleshed out for you. If you're someone who's looking for very detailed lessons, this is definitely something you want to take a look at and explore. And it's just you can modify them.
And well, as you mentioned too, Pam, pretty much every topic we have on the site, beyond just the ones that you saw on the homepage, they're all evergreen. So there's the continuing discussion, should the Supreme Court be expanded? Well, that's a deliberation that we already have. There's other discussion, should we reform election laws in states? That's another deliberation we have. So they just run the gamut for the potential topics.
Like we always say, there's something for everyone on these lessons. But yeah, definitely encourage you to come check these out. Like continue just to show you some of these handouts. Oops. The background videos here. You can save a copy for yourself, distribute it right to your students with the video, the related questions, all ready to go. And background reading, note-taking handouts, and we'll jump over here to the activities. These are just options again for you. How are you going to wrap this up? You want to do Socratic seminar with your students or have a debate? Just offer a variety, whatever works for them in your class. Taking a stand, congressional hearing. If you have any ideas for activities, again, feel free to send them our way because we love to hear from you. So anything else you want to add to deliberations?
No, I think we covered that, yeah.
Okay, so I'll get us out of here. And we'll move on to student camp.
So I just had two more things that I wanted to talk to you about. For any of you who are doing project-based learning in your classroom, this is a fantastic opportunity to incorporate not only a wonderful learning experience for your students, but also some cash prizes. So this is a documentary competition. It's a video documentary competition we've been doing for the past 19 years. And every year we award $100,000 in cash prizes. And that's to the top 150 films. We're recognizing those top 150 films with $100,000 in cash prizes as prizes for the students, as prizes for you as teachers if your students win some of the top prizes. And it's open to all students in grades 6 through 12. So the students in grades 6 through 8 competing against each other in a middle school category. And then we have 3 separate categories for the high school students, just because the bulk majority of our entries are coming from high school students. So we actually have an Eastern division, we have a Western division, and a Central division. And much as if you're looking at a map of the US, that would be, the East Coast is pretty much the East division, the central part of the country going from top to bottom would be the Central, and then obviously the Western portion of the country would be the Western division. So lots of prize opportunities for students. It's an amateur film contest, so no prior experience making videos. This is, every year, the bulk majority of students who are participating in this competition have never participated in a video competition. They might have made maybe a family video that they've uploaded to YouTube, or maybe they've edited something on their phone, but really that's not a requirement at all. The main things that we're looking at, and the 3 of us in this room are the primary judges of this competition, the main thing we're looking at is the content, and then secondary consideration is given to technical quality beyond that. So let's just take a look at the competition theme for next year. We've actually just announced that. You can see that. This year being a midterm election year, our theme this year is, if you were a newly elected member of Congress, which issue would be your first priority and why? And it's completely subjective to the students and their own personal experiences. It can be something that's affecting them, their community, something that's relevant to you in the state of South Carolina. They pick whichever issue is important to them, and it's not about what we think is most important or what is being discussed here in Washington. It can be something is hyper-localized to them, as long as they can tie it to a greater national significance, then that would absolutely be applicable for the competition theme this year. So along with that, you'll see the competition requirements. It's a 5 to 6 minute long video that they're creating. And in addition to obviously being open to students in grades 6 through 12, they can do it individually, they can do it as a team of 2, or they can do it as a team of 3. So maximum of team members are 3 members, but they can do it individually if they like as well. We see oftentimes some teachers will do this as a class project. Sometimes if you don't have time to include this as part of your curriculum, even offering it as a after school opportunity or as an extracurricular or as a extra credit opportunity for students is great as well. Simply mentioning it to the students as an opportunity for them to obviously do something project-based and learn something along the way, real life skills that will help them. Certainly in high school, absolutely in university, and certainly in their professional and work careers as well. But it's a great stepping stone that we've seen. I mean, at the moment, we're actually going back and reaching out to all the students who've won prizes over the years for those past 19 years and saying, what are you guys up to now? We'd love to hear testimonials from you about what you're doing with your careers and how this competition served as a way for you to get to the career that you're in. And it's remarkable. I mean, there's so many students who are filmmakers now, there's students who are involved in government and policy, there's journalists, and there's all sorts of other students who are doing any number of things, great things out there, that this competition just emboldened them, made them confident in speaking with adults, made them confident in doing research. So it really is a great project for students to, like I said, win some cash prizes, but also learn something along the way. So in terms of the other requirements you see there, the third bullet point down, they must include some supporting or opposing C-SPAN video. And one thing that we do as being a nonpartisan television network, we don't expect the students to be nonpartisan as they create the documentaries. They can certainly have their own personal points of view, but they must take a look at the opposing side of whatever their chosen issue is. One easy way to do that is through the use of C-SPAN video. As we talked about before, we have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have independents, everyone else in between. And on this page here, you've got clips of all of those officials, journalists, et cetera, talking about their issues. This is a great way where they can meet that requirement of not only using C-SPAN video, but also showing multiple perspectives related to their chosen topic. One other thing that we encourage students to do, as I talked about in terms of showing multiple sides, we encourage them to interview experts. So what qualifies as an expert could be anyone from an elected official who's involved in the policy or laws or legislation that's related to whatever their chosen topic may be. It could be someone who's involved in a work-related field, so their job might be related, and that might be someone, it might be mom and dad, it might be a relative, it might be a neighbor, could it be really be any number of people. It could be someone involved in local government, city councilmen, so on and so forth, historians, journalists, really any number of people. But the idea being here that they're going outside of their comfort circle and either reaching out to people on the phone or again through their personal networks and sitting down for an interview and asking someone who's involved in that field, questions that they might not typically ask of someone, so that they're learning firsthand from that person's own perspectives and from their own experiences. And then they put that all together as part of their video, and they submit it to us. And like I said, $100,000 in cash prizes that we award every year. So let's just take a look at the past winners, just to give you an idea. The place that we ask all teachers and students to start is to come in here and take a look at some of the past winning videos. And you'll see that we have all 150 prize winners from last year, and that's true for all of the previous years. You can see everything from our grand prize winners this year. We had 2 7th graders who actually won the grand prize of $5,000 this year. Remarkable video. That would be a great one to share, especially if you have younger students, about just what is possible, what they can achieve participating in this competition. And there's so many great stories. Zach, you want to click on that link just to bring it up? We're not going to watch the video, just what happened to Gibson Grove. And just to scroll down, you can actually see, Pam does press releases for all of the winning videos. You can see all of the articles that the students received, from television hits to radio interviews that the students did, other interviews that the students did. If you scroll down, you'll see the actual video, and again, it's a great one to check out. But further down, you'll see, Senator Chris Van Hollen recorded a congratulatory message from him. You've got a local historian congratulating them. You've got certificates from Representative Jamie Raskin, all of these other accolades. And really neat thing was we actually went to the school and did a ceremony for these students to recognize them for their work. And former transportation secretary, the documentary was actually related to transportation and the federal highway system, and looking at the federal highway system, how through inequalities and when they were doing all of this back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as they're building the federal highway system, inequalities in terms of when it was being built out specific to their locale, black cemeteries and other regions of the country that were sort of just paved over, and lots of local history lost through that. Obviously, people's loved ones, and if they didn't have the resources to battle the government on those sorts of things, then they got paved over. So in this case, these students look at a cemetery that was in their own community, and they discuss the history of the federal highway system. They talk about expansions to the Beltway here in the Washington, D.C. region, and about Maryland government. Originally, when they created this video, the area was going to be saved, but as it turns out, they're actually continuing the battle to fight paving over that part of the cemetery that you see there that was identified on the screen. So all that to say, we had the former transportation secretary, Rodney Slater, actually come to the ceremony. He delivered fantastic and really inspirational remarks to the students just about how impressed he was with not only the work that they did, but as seventh graders, I mean, it's really a remarkable work, and would encourage you and your students to check out this video, as well as many of the other videos that we have on the website. So,
including the many winners we have from South Carolina.
Absolutely, yeah. Richland Northeast, we get lots of entries from them, but we would love to see more middle schools and high schools represented as well. So yeah, we'd encourage you and your students to participate if this is a poll of interest. Last thing I'll do, and we'll leave it at that for Student Cam, this competition is going to officially launch at the beginning of the new school year. The submission deadline will be January 20th, so students would have the entire fall semester in which to work on this. The last thing I wanted to leave you with, if we can go back to the C-SPAN Classroom website just quickly, Zach. And just to quickly talk about professional development. So obviously we've done this session with you here tonight, but if you had interest in learning a little bit more about the cspan.org site, so separate from C-SPAN Classroom, if you wanted to see everything that C-SPAN's at and how you can clip those programs down to whatever time length you would use with your students, so separate from C-SPAN Classroom, if you want to see the entire archives, you can see there on July 28th, we'll be actually doing 3 different sessions. We'll be doing a session specific to C-SPAN Classroom. It'll be probably pretty similar to this, but maybe a little bit more in depth. We'll be doing one specifically on cspan.org and the clipping that I just talked about, and then a third session dedicated to Student Cam. So it'll be a deeper dive on Student Cam. If you're interested in any of that, you can sign up here using that registration link. Beyond that, if you are interested in professional development later in the year that's not on Thursday, July 28th, and you wanted us to meet with you or your teams or anything like that, we offer a free online teacher training anytime during the school day. You can just contact us. We'll do it before school, we'll do it after school. We'll customize it to your length. So if you have 5 minutes, you have 10 minutes, you have an hour. If you want to just specifically look at history, or you want to look at government, or you want to look at economics, we can talk about those resources. Really, we're happy to cater it to us. Simply email us. You can see that Zach's highlighted the email us link at the bottom of the page. Let us know, and we'll be happy to set something up for you. Be it in August or be it during the school year, that's perfectly fine as well. Last thing I'll mention, if you just want to scroll up, Zach, we also have a fellowship, and that's actually just commenced for this year. But if you are interested, every summer, Zach was actually a former fellow, so that state history program. The state history resources you talked about around South Carolina, that was something he developed when he was a teacher fellow before he started working at C-SPAN. And this is something we do every summer. These are the 5 teachers we currently have working with us, and would encourage you, if you are interested in professional development next summer, consider applying for that as well.
Yeah. Can I just make one plug?
Yep.
If you want to stay on top of all of our new resources and programs and Student Cam and everything else, you can sign up for our newsletter. If you scroll up to the top here, we have a link that's highlighted in red, newsletter registration. Yep, just provide us with that basic information, and throughout the school year, we will push out emails, usually on Sundays, and update you on content that is new or that you might be teaching. So it's just a great way to stay informed and in touch with us, especially if we're pushing out new stuff.
And you're able to access that just from the C-SPAN Classroom main page, teacher opportunities. All that information is right here for you, including our email address.
That's it for me. Anything else for you guys?
No, that's it.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you for joining us again.
That was wonderful, and really excited. What I love the idea of encouraging student voice and content creation. I really think that's like such a great dovetails with the idea that they're learning about these topics, these current events and historical events, and then you're giving them this opportunity to create. And that was one of the things when I was in the classroom that I felt was so important was we need students to have an opportunity to create things not just for a grade, but because they believe they can make an impact with their work on their communities, their states, and their country and the world. And this student cam opportunity is such a great way for them to do that. One quick question I had. So I know a lot of teachers are concerned in this environment, especially over the past 5 to 6 years. We've had this increasing division and a lot of people paying attention to what's happening in classrooms. And I think a lot of teachers are kind of scared about, diving into current events and having these discussions. And I know some, like when I was in the classroom, we used CNN Classroom. But what I like about what I'm seeing is that you've done such a really good job. A lot of other news outlets have just dropped the pretense of any kind of objectivity. And it seems to me that what you're creating really here is a way for educators to safely investigate with their students these important topics without fear of being critiqued as biased. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I think just generally speaking, you said the key word there, news, where C-SPAN differs, that we're not news, we're public affairs, we're current events. So there is no news element necessarily. So that is able to cut through a lot of that.
Yeah, we like to say that we don't cover breaking news, so to speak. We cover the federal government's response to breaking news in many cases. In addition to that, obviously, we have the historians and the journalists. I would say, for every teacher that is using our resources, I would still recommend, previewing the clips. As we said before, you will absolutely see partisan politics on C-SPAN. The difference is we try to balance it out wherever possible. So if we feature like Steve Scalise, the minority whip Republican, talking about the Second Amendment, we're also going to show someone from the left, talking about it from their perspective. And the idea is, teachers, as long as you're playing both clips and allowing the students to see both of those clips, that the balance is there. Again, there's no from us, there's no emphasis on one clip versus the other. It's purely up to the students to listen to those clips and then make up their own minds about what they agree or disagree with.
Yeah, and I think that's what helps us create a genuine connection with you, is being former classroom teachers. We had to ensure we weren't, nonpartisan and unbiased when we were delivering content, and that's actually how I found C-SPAN class. I was using C-SPAN in my classroom, but it just again shows just from the top down how C-SPAN's mission really impacts every single team, and it's something we think about every time we create something.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's more important now than ever, I think, for our young people to learn about these things in an environment where they can learn through objective sources and see both sides of issues, see multiple sides of issues. Sometimes it's more than two sides, and for them to be able to explore these things, these resources, and develop their own ideas and opinions about it, and then be able to create content to show what they've learned. So I think it's wonderful. And Zach, Pam, Craig, thank you so much for such a clear and thorough outline of all of C-SPAN Classroom's resources tonight. I want to invite everybody who's watching. We'll put a link to the C-SPAN Classroom in the comments if it's not already there. And I just want to invite everybody to consider joining our movement here at the SCEA. And you could do that by going to jointhescea.org. Right now, you can join with no dues until September. And I also invite you to learn more about the Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. That's at cool.us. That's CEWL.us, CEWL.us. And we'll be posting the recording of this video to that website. And there's a whole host of other resources that we're continuing to add onto that website. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Again, thanks to our guests, Zach, Pam, and Craig from C-SPAN Classroom. We hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you on the next webinar next Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the importance of relationships and building school culture with an administrator from Ohio named Bill Mayer. So we hope you'll join us then at 7 to 8 o'clock next Tuesday, July 12th. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, join the SCEA.org. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.